There is new U.S. intelligence that is indicating Russian President Vladimir Putin could try to test NATO's unity with a limited attack on a NATO-allied country. The assessments warn that Russia could conduct a small-scale incursion or a cyber attack designed to test NATO's commitment to Article 5. Article 5 states that an attack on one member is an attack on all. Joining me now is Zach Cohen. Zach, what does this assessment tell us specifically about what Putin might be planning?
Yeah, Jake, it effectively lays out that there's a window of time where Vladimir Putin believes he could test and see how much he can get away with effectively as far as encroaching on NATO territory, challenging the member states to their commitment to Article 5 to defend an attack against one is an attack against all. And that is really predicated on this idea that U.S. officials and NATO officials believe that Putin is growing frustrated by taking serious losses in the war with Ukraine and could move to shift his tactic by focusing on NATO in particular. He does see potentially an opportunity here to expose some fractures within the alliance and could particularly target some of the smaller, less strong member states in an effort to see how much action he can get away with before crossing that Article 5 threshold. And I'm told that this intelligence does suggest the most likely targets would be places like the Baltics or Poland, places where we've actually seen some recent Russian activity.
Drones and cyber attacks.
Exactly.
Right?
And over the last several years, we've seen a pretty steady pace of that kind of activity. But this intelligence lays out various scenarios in various ways Putin might want to test the alliance's strength. Now, the one sort of other alternative here is that if Putin is able to secure some sort of a face-saving agreement of some kind to end the war in Ukraine, there is potential there for him not to have motive for shifting his attention elsewhere. But again, the talks, the dialogue between Russia and Ukraine, intermediated by the United States, has stalled, we're told. So it's really up in the air here, and we are told senior officials are very concerned about this very real threat.
What's your reaction to this reporting?
I think it has to be taken seriously. The Russians have been playing around with incursions for the last couple of years. In last September, they used an armed incursion to go after Poland. In May, they used an armed drone to go after Romania. And just this last week, an explosive-laden drone was found in Germany that belonged to a Russian intelligence team. So these are real threats. And Putin will use either cyber or use drones, or could possibly even use a military incursion to be able to test NATO and test Article 5 and whether NATO will respond. I think we have to take this very seriously.
And obviously at the center of all this is the war with Ukraine. Does this tell you anything or give you any indication of how Putin is thinking about this war?
Yeah, I think Putin is frustrated because he can't find an off-ramp to deal with the situation in Ukraine. He's taken quite a hit. And I think he's looking for other ways to try to assert Russian aggressiveness. So it all fits together. I think we have to take this intelligence assessment as a real threat to NATO. And we have to respond. We're going to have to respond. And right now, because of our missile systems and our supply of weapons being down, this is a vulnerable period for the United States.
Does Putin look at the U.S. bogged down in Iran with this missile defense issue and see that this may be his moment to strike?
Well, I think he is watching the Trump administration in Iran very carefully, and what he smells is fear. The fear that Trump is in a situation where he doesn't have a ready solution to the problem of American gasoline prices at the pump for American consumers. And in the weeks and months before an election, that may well be a place where Putin could try to put pressure on another NATO country. But bear in mind, if Russia had the resources to really undertake a major military move, you have to ask, why hasn't he done it in Ukraine in the last 4 years to get out of the gridlock that's destroying the Russian military day by day by day, a war of attrition that Russia thought it could win, that is now the Ukrainian side that's attriting the Russian side. I'd like to know where these extra military assets are that the Russians could use to threaten NATO countries. As I say, if Putin had extra military assets, it's hard to understand why he didn't deploy them in Ukraine years ago.
Ambassador Bolton, great to have you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Putin isn't just threatening NATO, he's dramatically escalating attacks inside of Ukraine, ramping up drone and missile attacks as Ukraine is running dangerously low on the defenses it needs to stop them. Fred Pleitgen is out front.
Russian drones allegedly hitting a warehouse in Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, as well as a railway facility Moscow claims is linked to Ukraine's military. Russia's army is drastically expanding drone strike on Ukraine's logistics and infrastructure. In Moscow, Russian President Vladimir Putin trying to regain battlefield momentum, shaking up his general staff. For the first time ever, appointing a coordinator for drone warfare. Everybody knows well that we decided to create a new branch of the armed forces, the Unmanned Systems Forces, he says. The goal was to find a person who had proven himself in the best possible way in this role. Putin also ramping up missile strikes. A recent nighttime aerial blitz targeting Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, killing 17 people and destroying several warehouses. Ukraine's president saying a shortage of U.S.-made Patriot interceptors, exacerbated by extensive U.S. Patriot use during President Trump's war against Iran, has seriously weakened Ukraine's ability to defend against ballistic missiles. Since the beginning of 2026, Zelensky said at a meeting with his general staff, Ukraine started receiving just a third of the anti-ballistic missiles. Russia's expanded air campaign comes just as Ukraine believed it was turning the tide in the 4.5-year war. Near daily, Ukrainian long-distance drone attacks against Russian energy sites and Russia's largest online retailer have taken a toll, Moscow acknowledges. Russian law severely restricts media from showing the aftermath of Ukrainian drone strikes, but these are some of the places where Kyiv's drones have hit energy sites and warehouses in just the past 5 days.
The war certainly feels a lot closer to home for many Russians these days. A lot of them, quite frankly, are concerned about their safety amid the ongoing Ukrainian drone attacks. But there is also big fear about the state of this country's economy and whether it could sustain long-term damage.
Thousands of small Russian businesses use online retailer Wildberries for sales. And those sales have often dipped so dramatically, some pickup points are shutting down, one owner says. In order to break even, we need to make 250,000 rubles in profits, but now we don't do it, he says. The last month has been entirely loss-making. But so far, the Kremlin is showing no sign of changing course, instead vowing to continue what it still calls its special military operation in Ukraine. For Pleitgen, CNN, Moscow.